Beowulf, the epic poem by an unknown poet. Introduction. This story comes from an Anglo-Saxon poem, which was probably written sometime between the years 700 and 800 AD. The Anglo-Saxon people began to settle in Britain around 450 AD. They came from Europe, mainly from the countries we now call Germany and Denmark. Beowulf is written in an Anglo-Saxon language, sometimes called Old English, but the story does not take place in England at all. It is about some of the ancestors of the Anglo-Saxons, tribes who lived in countries that are now called Denmark and Sweden. The people already living in Britain were called the Britons. They were a Celtic people, like many of the Scots, Irish and Welsh today. The Anglo-Saxon invaders drove most of the Britons back until they lived only in the areas now called Cornwall, Wales, and Scotland. This map shows where different tribes from Europe settled in Britain. It is from the names of these tribes that we get some of the names of parts of Britain that we still use today: East Angles, East Anglia, East Saxons, Essex, South Saxons, Sussex. Even the word England comes from Angleland. Scyld Scefing's funeral. A tall ship stands in the harbour, a boat with a ringed neck, rocking on the icy waves, eager to sail. Along the shore people stand. They look at the ship with sad faces, their hearts heavy because of their king. His days are over. He must cross into the keeping of the Lord. Many years ago he came to them, the Danish people. They found him on the beach in a boat no bigger than a shield, a child without clothing, surrounded by presents. No one knew who had sent him across the sea, but he lived and grew and gained respect until they made him their king, and all the tribes living nearby had to obey him. No enemy dared to attack, and he gave gifts gladly to his followers. His name was Scyld Scefing. He was a good king. Now the hour has come. The men who have been his sword companions carry him to the water's edge, as he told them to do while he could still speak. In the ship's middle, by the mast, they lay down their lord and master, and round him they make a mound of treasure, shining shields, weapons and warriors' armor. The men leave the ship full of sorrow, leave the old king to his far journey. They let the seas take him as the ship sails. However wise they may be, no one can say for sure who received that ship's load in the end. Did you know the Anglo-Saxons sometimes buried their dead in ships? Scyld Scefing's body is placed in a ship and sent out to sea, but in 1938 a whole Anglo-Saxon ship was found buried in the ground at a place called Sutton Hoo in Suffolk. The ship was full of gold and silver, jewelry and weapons, bowls and cups. In Anglo-Saxon times these sorts of things were often buried with people when they died, perhaps because the Anglo-Saxons thought the dead person would need them on their journey to another life, or when he got there. Or perhaps these objects were meant to show how important the dead person had been when he or she was alive, or were the things they liked to use and were fond of. No one knows for sure who was buried in the ship at Sutton Hoo, but it must have been a rich person, perhaps a king of the East Angles who lived in that part of the country. It seems the ship was buried around 640 AD, that means 640 years after the birth of Jesus. Hrothgar's Hall. Scyld Scefing's sons and grandsons ruled after him, until Hrothgar, his grandson's child, grew to be a man and gained glory in battle. He became leader of the Danish people. Friends and family gathered around him and the band of his followers grew bigger than ever. Then it came into his mind to build a great mead hall, mightier than any ever heard of on earth. There he could share with his people, the young and the old, the gifts God had given him. Craftsmen came from far and wide from many tribes to work on the hall, and before long it was finished. Hrothgar named the hall Heorot, and there, as he had promised, he held feasts for his people, gave out gold rings and other gifts. Poets sang to the sound of the harp. The hall roof was high over the heads of the feasters. Heorot's pointed roof rose far into the sky. What do you think Heorot might have looked like? The word Herot in Anglo-Saxon means deer, and the poem tells us that the hall had a special kind of pointed roof. Perhaps the points on the roof were made to look like a deer's antlers. The hall would probably have been made of wood. Some Anglo-Saxon halls had thatched roofs. Some had wooden ones and some had tiles on the roof. Inside the hall people sat at tables on long benches to eat and drink and talk. Sometimes they listened to songs and poems. There would be a fire in the middle of a large room, with a hole in the roof for the smoke. The lord and his closest friends and advisers probably sat at one table near the fire. Except for the warriors who slept in the hall to guard it, most families lived in smaller buildings with their animals. These buildings would be not far from the hall. Drawing of an Anglo-Saxon house and family. The Anglo-Saxons lived in small groups or tribes made up of families related to each other. Usually they had a leader and a council called the Witan to make decisions for the tribe. The hall was important as a place where everyone could meet together. Things which mattered to the whole tribe could be discussed. Also the hall was a place where the leader could give gifts to his warriors and they could promise to fight for him if he needed them. Grendel attacks. So Hrothgar's people lived well, feasting and laughing in the warm firelight of the hall, never thinking of trouble. Each evening the sounds of their happy talk, the poets singing and people's laughter floated out from the hall. But someone heard those sounds. The monster Grendel deep down in his dark den out on the moors, and his heart was filled with wickedness and rage. So when night came to Herot, Grendel came also. The great shaggy beast burst into the hall and grabbed their warriors where they lay sleeping. 30 men he clawed and killed, carried their bleeding bodies to his own dark home. Night after night it was the same. No one was surprised when warriors wanted to sleep in the farthest buildings, but still they were not safe. Grendel's hatred did not grow less. He killed Hrothgar's people wherever he found them, and for 12 long years Herod stood empty. The monster ruled there now. At night he camped among the broken tables and benches and slashed with his claws and howled his hatred of Hrothgar's people. The Danes in trouble. Grendel had begun his killing and he could not stop. The people were afraid, each one wanted to survive. Hrothgar's face was stiff with sorrow. He sat silent, missing his men. A council of the wisest among the Danes met every day to decide what to do. What do you think Hrothgar and his people should do? A. Send in the best warriors to fight the monster? The most stout-hearted soldiers among the Danes offered to wait at night in the hall. Hrothgar tells what happened. It is a grief to my heart to tell it now. My hall companions, see how few of them are left. The bravest boasted after cups of beer that they would wait here in the hall to face the foe. Their swords were ready for the enemy, they cried. When morning came Herot's floor, which is made in patterns of different colored wood, had one color only, the red of blood. It was soaked in blood, slippery and wet. Not one man survived. Grendel had them all. B. Send for help from other tribes? The Witan, or council, could not agree. Wulfgar, one of the most trusted and important of the Danes, spoke out. Some say we should send for help. I don't like telling other tribes our troubles. Who knows what they may do? The tribe of the Heathobids are our neighbors. We have had many wars with them in the past. They would not wait long when they heard we were weak and in trouble. They would soon attack. Do you think they don't know already? Hrothgar's advisor Istr replied. News of Grendel's murders has spread far and wide. There are some tribes who are friendly to us, like the Geats. We helped them once in their wars, but they are far away. We must send word to them. We cannot trust any other tribes, Wulfgar said. There have been too many wars between us all for that. When we helped the Geats we were a strong tribe. You, Lord Hrothgar, were still a Yorug man. Now the Danes are a weak and frightened people. Only when you are a strong tribe can you trust other tribes to help or obey you. Wealhtheow, Hrothgar's wife, then spoke, "We must do something. You, my lord Hrothgar, are old. We have no one among us who can beat Grendel. So slowly he will kill us all, or we must leave Herod forever. Where will we go? Will we fight our neighbors for land to live on? Or will we be a wandering people without a home? Then we will be weakest of all. We must trust someone. A hero must be found to meet the monster." Then Hrothgar said, "What you say is true, Wulfgar, but I agree with Wheel the Hour and with Estr, my wise friend. We have no other choice. Let us send messengers overseas and see what help will come." "See, pray?" The Danes prayed aloud to their many gods to stop the sufferings of the people. In those days of trouble they forgot about believing in one God. They went back to worshipping the old gods they had believed in before. They went to the holy places of their gods to make offerings and promises if the gods would only end the sudden terrors of Grendel's attacks. But their prayers were wasted and did not work. Grendel came each night as he had before. Which gods did the Danes worship? The Danes in the story probably worshipped the same gods that the Anglo-Saxons did before they became Christians. The Anglo-Saxons became Christians in the 7th century. The head of the Christian Church, Pope Gregory, sent St. Augustine and a group of monks to England to persuade the Anglo-Saxons to become Christians. Also, monks like St. Aidan and St. Columba came from Ireland, which was already Christian, and slowly England was converted. Before that time, the Anglo-Saxons worshipped the gods Woden, Thor, and Frigg. From these words come the names of our days of the week: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So Wednesday means Woden's day, Thursday Thor's day, and so on. This is a small statue of the thunder god Thor. He is holding the hammer that he makes thunder with. Our word Easter comes from the name of the Anglo-Saxon goddess of the dawn, Eosta. It took a long time for the whole of England to become Christian. Quite often some tribes of Anglo-Saxons would go back to their old gods, like the Danes do here. The watchmen. The Geats thanked God that they had crossed the seas safely. Their battle armor clanged as they marched onto the beach. The watchmen on the cliffs had seen the ship, and the men in war dress with their polished shields. He went down and shouted to them, "Strangers, you have steered your ship across the seas to our shore. Where are you from and why have you come here?" Beowulf answered, "We come from the land of the Geats. We are Lord Hygelac's soldiers. I am Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, the famous fighter. We have heard that Herod and Lord Hrothgar have an enemy, a beast who comes in darkness to kill and destroy. I will tell Lord Hrothgar a plan which will save him from his sadness and all the Danes from the misery of this monster. You are the watchman. Do you believe Beowulf and let him pass? Or do you think it is a trick, and that he and his men are spies or raiders? Marching to Heorot. A wise man should know when words are true. The watchman said, I will show you the way, for I believe you are loyal to Lord Hrothgar. My men will guard your ship while you are gone. The watchman rode his horse ahead of them away from the shore. Beowulf and his men marched behind. When they could all see the hall before them, the watchman said, Now I must go back to guarding the cliffs. May God give you good luck against Grendel. The road to Herod was paved with stone and their stamping feet made it sing out as the men marched along. The linked rings of their mailcoats jingled and their shields and helmets shone as bright as Heorot's golden roof in the sun. The Geats were glad when they got to the hall. They were tired after their sea journey. They took off their heavy shields, which had been hardened by a rainstorm of spears in many battles before. They stacked up their grey spears made of ash wood outside the hall, as a sign they did not mean to attack anyone there. In the hall, Lord Hrothgar sent one of his most trusted men to greet them. Wulfgar was his name, a man both brave and wise. He soon brought Beowulf before Hrothgar. Beowulf looked stern in his helmet. His mailcoat shone as he marched quickly under Heorot's roof to where the white-haired lord was sitting. Hail to you, Hrothgar. My name is Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow. I am Hygelac's warrior and his kinsman. I have heard that this hall becomes useless to your people after the sun falls below the edge of the sky at evening. Tales of Grendel's attacks have reached me at home in the land of the Geats. I have often struggled against my people's enemies in battle. A whole family of giants I once trapped and destroyed. By night, far out at sea, I killed water monsters and put up with great difficulties among the dark waves. Now it is for me alone to sort out the monster Grendel. People say that Grendel does not bother with weapons, and neither shall I. I will beat him with my bare hands and my body's strength. Hrothgar was full of joy. Beowulf, my friend, you have come to us out of loving kindness. Your father began a terrible feud by killing one of the tribe of the Wildlings. Your father's people, the Geats, could not protect him. I was a young man then, and I brought Danish warriors to help the Geats to end the feud. I paid the Wildlings with treasure for the loss of the man's life. Now you can repay me. See how many warriors I have lost. See how my people live in fear. Grendel has brought such terror to our lives. Now sit down to the feast with your men and tell us what you plan to do. Do you think everyone in the hall is as pleased as Hrothgar to see Beowulf? Or might some be suspicious or jealous? The Danish warriors made way on the mead benches for Beowulf's men. They sat grouped together while the glowing mead was poured out for them to drink. Then Hrothgar's wife Wealhtheow came forward. She was well known for the wisdom of her mind. She gave the jeweled cup first to her husband and wished him joy at the beer drinking. Then she took the precious goblet to each group of warriors in turn, the old and the young. Then her hands, flashing with rings, held out the cup to Beowulf. She greeted the Geatish leader and gave thanks to God that now a noble warrior had come as she had hoped for so long. She knew she could trust him. Beowulf spoke. I decided as I set out to sea, that I would rid the Danes of this monster forever, or else die in the mead hall held fast in his grip. Before you all now, I make this boast, that alone, without weapons of any kind, I will defeat Grendel. I am sure I am as good a fighter as Grendel. Let God decide the winner. Wealhtheow liked this speech well. Never before has Heorot been trusted to any other man, she told Beowulf. Tonight you must have and hold the great hall of the Danes. Keep watch, be brave, and think of the glory you must gain. Then again there was laughter in the hall, the happiness of heroes. The Geats and the Danes sat together. Words of courage and sounds of joy were heard once more in Heorot. The clear voice of the poet rose in the hall. At last everyone got up to go to bed. Hrothgar and Wealhtheow with their people left the hall. Only the Geats stayed behind. What might you see at an Anglo-Saxon feast? In the hall, Lord Hrothgar sent one of his most trusted men to greet them. Wulfgar was his name, a man both brave and wise. He soon brought Beowulf before Hrothgar. Beowulf looked stern in his helmet. His mailcoat shone as he marched quickly under Heorot's roof to where the white-haired lord was sitting. Hail to you, Hrothgar. My name is Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow. I am Hygelac's warrior and his kinsman. I have heard that this hall becomes useless to your people after the sun falls below the edge of the sky at evening. Tales of Grendel's attacks have reached me at home in the land of the Geats. I have often struggled against my people's enemies in battle. A whole family of giants I once trapped and destroyed. By night, far out at sea, I killed water monsters and put up with great difficulties among the dark waves. Now it is for me alone to sort out the monster Grendel. People say that Grendel does not bother with weapons, and neither shall I. I will beat him with my bare hands and my body's strength. Hrothgar was full of joy. Beowulf, my friend, you have come to us out of loving kindness. Your father began a terrible feud by killing one of the tribe of the Wildlings. Your father's people, the Geats, could not protect him. I was a young man then, and I brought Danish warriors to help the Geats to end the feud. I paid the Wildlings with treasure for the loss of the man's life. Now you can repay me. See how many warriors I have lost. See how my people live in fear. Grendel has brought such terror to our lives. Now sit down to the feast with your men and tell us what you plan to do. Do you think everyone in the hall is as pleased as Hrothgar to see Beowulf? Or might some be suspicious or jealous? The Danish warriors made way on the mead benches for Beowulf's men. They sat grouped together while the glowing mead was poured out for them to drink. Then Hrothgar's wife Wealhtheow came forward. She was well known for the wisdom of her mind. She gave the jeweled cup first to her husband and wished him joy at the beer drinking. Then she took the precious goblet to each group of warriors in turn, the old and the young. Then her hands, flashing with rings, held out the cup to Beowulf. She greeted the Geatish leader and gave thanks to God that now a noble warrior had come as she had hoped for so long. She knew she could trust him. Beowulf spoke. I decided as I set out to sea, that I would rid the Danes of this monster forever, or else die in the mead hall held fast in his grip. Before you all now, I make this boast, that alone, without weapons of any kind, I will defeat Grendel. I am sure I am as good a fighter as Grendel. Let God decide the winner. Wealhtheow liked this speech well. Never before has Heorot been trusted to any other man. She told Beowulf, tonight you must have and hold the great hall of the Danes. Keep watch, be brave, and think of the glory you must gain. Then again there was laughter in the hall, the happiness of heroes. The Geats and the Danes sat together. Words of courage and sounds of joy were heard once more in Heorot. The clear voice of the poet rose in the hall. At last everyone got up to go to bed. Hrothgar and Wealhtheow with their people left the hall. Only the Geats stayed behind. What might you see at an Anglo-Saxon feast? The fight with Grendel. Darkness comes and Beowulf lies down beside his brave men. His soldiers are sure they will not see their country again. Under the mist the monster creeps towards Heorot. The soldiers are sleeping, but one man keeps watch without blinking. It is Beowulf. Like a long shadow Grendel comes gliding. His hairy hands rip their hall door off its hinges. A horrible light glows from his eyes. His heart is joyful when he sees so many sleeping in the hall, a fine feast for him. He must start straight away. He grabs the sleeping soldier near him, snaps his bones and tears him to pieces with claws and teeth. Grendel stuffs the dead man down in huge mouthfuls, greedily gulping. In no time he has eaten him all, even the hands and feet. Grendel puts out his hand to seize the next sleeping man, but that man's hand comes up to meet him, grasping the monster's hand firmly in such a strong grip that Grendel is afraid. His finger joints are cracking, he has never felt a greater hand grip. He wants to run back to the moors, to hide in the mist, to find his own home. Even so, he cannot get away any quicker, for Beowulf has pinned his arm down. Now they are wrestling fiercely. Beowulf is on his feet, bending the arm backwards, pushing back the monster bit by bit. Benches crash to the ground. Grendel roars with pain and fury. Beowulf's warriors rush to help him, striking with their swords. They will save their leader's life if they can. They do not know at first that no iron weapon can wound that beast. The din of that fight is dreadful to hear, the shrieks of the monster, the shouts of men. Outside the hall, the Danes hear it and tremble with fear. Up and down these fierce enemies fight. The hall shakes as if it must fall down. The finely carved tables are knocked over and smashed against the walls as Grendel tries desperately to shake Beowulf off. But Beowulf remembers the words spoken last night and he holds on tight. A huge wound opens in Grendel's shoulder. The muscles burst apart, his arm is torn away. With a scream Grendel flees from the hall leaving his arm. He knows he will die. strong-hearted Beowulf is given glory in his struggle. He has done what he boasted he would. He has freed the Danes from fear. The great grabbing arm of Grendel, from the shoulder to the claws, he hangs above the doorway of Heorot as a sign to all who see it. Grendel's arm. In the morning a great crowd gathered at Heorot. People came from far and near to gaze at Grendel's hand hanging there and to wonder at his huge footmarks. Warriors on white horses followed the footprints and the trail of blood to a dark pool. Its waters were still bubbling and bloody where the monster had dived. Looking for his lair under the waves, he had died for sure. No one was sorry, he had done so much harm. On the way back the horsemen were happy. The horses tossed their manes and raced over the sandy road. Then one man began to make up a poem of what Beowulf had done, putting together just the right words, and to tell stories of other famous heroes. Happiness in the hall. There was a great feast that night in Heorot. The Geats and the Danes sat together on the mead benches, passing the drinking horn round. The hall had been cleaned and the tables and benches mended. Tapestries gleaming with gold thread hung from the walls. Hrothgar stood up and spoke. He gave thanks that this day had come. One man has done what all of us could not, he said. Grendel is dead, who did us so much harm. I wish I had the whole of him here to show you, Beowulf replied. He left his arm to get away. My grip was not strong enough to stop him, but it did him no good. He is dead anyway. He will do no more damage to the Danes. Dear Beowulf, Hrothgar said, you are my son now. I will gladly give you any gift in the world that I can. Your name will live forever. Your deeds have made sure of that. Then Hrothgar gave to Beowulf a battle standard made of gold, a helmet, a mailcoat and a famous fighting sword. 8 horses came trotting into the hall with high-stepping hooves. Their bridles were of gold. One wore a saddle decorated with jewels and beautifully carved patterns. It had belonged to Hrothgar himself. Take these, dear Beowulf, and use them well, the old lord said. Beowulf was not shy at such a rich gift-giving. He had earned his reward. No one forgot that Grendel in his greed had killed one Geatish man. Hrothgar gave gold to take back to Geatland for the man's family. Each of Beowulf's men had his gift, beautifully made things to keep forever and give to their children. Then the Geats and Danes settled down gladly to the feast. Heorot was full of friends. They rejoiced with their hero, Beowulf, and with Hrothgar, their ring-giving lord. There never was a happier time or a finer company of people. The poet picked up his harp. He would tell the story of Finn the Frisian, he said, and the fight at Finnsberg. This poet knew hundreds of stories by heart, and always told them truthfully and in the most pleasing way, weaving the right words together. Plucking the strings of his harp he began to speak. All listened as the fire burned low. Why do you think the poet had to know this long poem by heart? Grendel's mother attacks. Darkness comes. Lord Hrothgar and wealthy Ar went a while ago to their bed, but many warriors want to sleep again in the hall as they used to do. They move the mead benches and put down bedding. They place their shields at their heads and weapons near at hand. It is no use. One man will pay with his life for that night's rest. For Grendel's mother comes from the moors, sobbing for her son. She is savage with sorrow. She will get revenge. She dashes through the door, screeching when she sees her son's arm hanging there. The soldiers leap up, grabbing their swords. Now they have seen her, she must get out fast. She snatches a man swiftly and runs from the hall. It is Istri, Lord Hrothgar's most loved man. Heorot is full of shouts and screams. Blood spatters the floor, but she is gone, and Grendel's hand has gone with her. Let's hear some of this in Anglo-Saxon. Hrothgar asks for help. Grey-haired Lord Hrothgar called Beowulf to him. My dearest man is dead, Istri my friend and adviser. a terrible she-ogre carried him off. People living in the countryside often say they have seen two monsters prowling, a he and a she, two horrible shapes bigger than any man moving in the mist. Where do these creatures live? Beowulf asked him. Out on the hillsides, Hrothgar replied, in some wild craggy place with only wolves and the howling wind for company. There is a mere, a great dark pool with thorny trees all tangled and covered with frost. Huge caves beneath the stormy waters are the monster's home. At night people say you can sometimes see fire on the pool. A deer hunted by hounds will rather die on the bank than dive into those dreadful waters. You are our only hope, dear Beowulf. The country is strange to you. Do you dare to seek the she-monster? Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, replied, it is better to avenge a friend than to weep over him. We all have to die in the end, but first a fighting man must try to win fame by his deeds. Then tales of his daring will be told long after he is dead. Stand up, Lord Hrothgar, and be strong, as I know you can. This she-monster is carrying on a blood feud against the Danes. I promise you, wherever she may hide, she will not escape me. How do you think a blood feud could be stopped without more killing? At the mere, Hrothgar rides out on a horse with a plaited mane. He is handsomely dressed and his warriors and advisors go with him, following the clear trail of the she-monster across the moors. Beowulf goes ahead with a handful of men. They scrabble up steep rocky paths until they come to the mere, a wide stretch of water under the shadow of an ugly grey rock. There is nothing lovely to be seen, only the jagged cliffs and the twisted roots of trees. Water snakes lie on the ledges of the cliffs and on the grey rock overhanging the water. Looking into the water, many monsters can be seen streaking beneath the waves. One wave-thrashing creature raises its head out of the water, but an arrow from Beowulf's bow catches it in the throat and cuts off its thread of life. It tries to swim, but the men attack it with spears and haul it onto the shore. It is as long as a ship, a terrible sight. Hrothgar and his men soon reached them, and the battle horn's voice rang out through the air. At once they saw a horrible thing, Esk's head lying on the shore. Then Beowulf put on his armor, his silver-grey helmet decorated with the fierce faces of wild boars and a mail shirt to protect his body. Unferth, Hrothgar's best warrior, offered Beowulf his sword. Its name was Hrunting. It had belonged to Unferth's family for many years, and tasted blood in many battles. But Unferth himself did not dare to dive into the dark pool. He lost his reputation because of that. Beowulf spoke, son of Ecgtheow. I am keen to get started, wise Lord Hrothgar. Remember, if I am killed, you have promised to act as a father to me. Do the same for my men and send them safely back to Hygelac with the gifts you have given me. Then Hygelac will know that I got good treatment from a generous jewel-giving lord. Let Unferth keep my sword, if I do not return, for with his weapon, hard-edged hunting, I shall do this famous deed or meet my death. The fight at the mere. Without waiting for an answer, Beowulf dived and the waves closed over him. For almost a day he swam down and did not see the bottom. But she, who has guarded that watery place for 100 years, she knows that someone from above is exploring her home. She darts upwards, feels for the man in the murky water and fixes her hooked claws into his armor, dragging him down. Sea snakes and water monsters swarm about him, wrapping themselves round him and ripping at his armor with their tusks and teeth. His arms are pinned to his sides and he cannot draw his sword. She has dragged him to her lair. Beowulf finds himself in a large cave, an enemy hall, lit by a strange fiery glow. The water monsters are gone, no water weighs on him now. He sees the size of the she-monster, Grendel's mother, as she turns to throw herself on him. He strikes at her with his sword, a mighty blow to the side of her head, but the blade does not bite. For the first time Hrunting, that famous weapon, fails in battle. Beowulf flings it to the floor and grabs Grendel's mother by the shoulders. meaning to trust to his own strength. He is bursting with anger and does not think of his own life. He throws her down, but she trips him and he stumbles. She is down on his back and has drawn her knife with its bright blade. His mail shirt saves him then, its rings linked together so closely and cleverly the knife point can find no way in. At that moment Beowulf sees the one thing that can save him and bring him success. A sword formed the olden days of the giants lying among some armor not far away. His hand reaches for it. It is larger than any human weapon. No other man could lift it in battle. His hand closes around the hilt of the sword, which is decorated with strange shapes and patterns. With all his strength Beowulf swings the sword at his enemy, slicing straight through her skin and the bones of her neck. She falls to the floor. He is glad he has done it. There comes a light through the cave like the sun, the sky's candle, rising in the morning. Beowulf rushes to the back of the cave and finds Grendel lying lifeless there. With a giant sword he hacks off his head. The blood of those two monsters is so poisonous and hot that the metal of the sword blade melts like an icicle, dripping away, until only the hilt remains in Beowulf's hand. Soon those watching from the cliffs around the lake saw the water churning and colored with blood. Grey-haired men began to shake their heads. There was no hope now, they said, of Beowulf's safe return. They felt certain the she-monster had destroyed him. The 9th hour of the day came and the Danes left the lakeside. Kind Hrothgar, the gold-giver and friend of the people, turned towards home. Only the Geatish warriors stayed, staring at the surface of the pool, feeling sick with sorrow. They hope for Beowulf's return, but they are sure they will not see him again. Beowulf takes no treasure from the monster's cave, only the decorated sword hilt of the giant sword and the head of Grendel. He sets out swimming upwards, pushing on through the clear water. There are no sea monsters now to slow him down. The Geats still sit by the mere, hardly speaking. One man sees something move beneath the water. He leaps up. It's coming nearer, a grey thing, a helmet, bursting out of the water, and Beowulf's face beneath it. They see their leader shaking the water out of his eyes, swimming to the shore. Full of joy they run to meet him and take off his armor. Then they go stepping gaily back to Heorot. It is not at all easy even for 4 of them to carry Grendel's head on a spear. With Beowulf among them the Geats march boldly back to the hall. Farewells. Hrothgar and the Danes were overjoyed to see them when Beowulf and his men marched into the high-roofed hall. They gazed in horror at the hideous head of Grendel as Beowulf told how he at last defeated the monster's mother beneath the waves. Beowulf gave to Hrothgar the hilt of the giant's sword marked with swirling patterns of twisted serpents. That wonderful weapon made so long ago by a giant's skill lay in the hands of the best lord of the Danes. Now you can sleep free from fear, Beowulf told the Danes. You are a rare man, Beowulf, Hrothgar said. You are so strong, yet your mind rules your strength wisely, and uses it to bring peace. You will always be a comfort to your people and a helper for heroes. If Hygelac dies, the Geats could not choose a better lord than you. What does Hrothgar think makes a good ruler? Beowulf thanked Hrothgar for his praise, but by now the Geats were eager to get back to their ship and sail for their homeland. Do not leave us yet, Beowulf, Hrothgar said. My daughter Friwaru is to be married soon to Engeld, the young lord of the Heathobbards. The marriage will end our long feud with them. Engeld's own father was killed in one of the fights between us. Friwaru will be a true peace weaver for our 2 tribes. Be our guest at the wedding. Beowulf thanked Hrothgar, but he would not stay. I must return to Lord Hygelac. He will soon hear how kindly you have cared for us, and see from your presence what a great and gift-giving lord you are. There will always be friendship between our 2 tribes. If you need us, we will help you. Hrothgar hugged Beowulf and the tears ran down. The old lord knew he would not see Beowulf again, and his heart burned with longing for the much-loved man. Then Wealhtheow stepped forward and placed a beautiful gold neckband around Beowulf's neck and hung a finely woven cloak from his shoulders. "Enjoy this neckband and this cloak, dearest young warrior," she said. "I wish you treasures and blessings as long as you live. Protect my sons in time to come, if they need you. For all time people will speak your praise as widely as the sea, where the wind lives, washes the edges of the world." Return to Geatland. Beowulf and his men returned home. The ship flew like a bird with foam at its throat across the waves. Hygelac's hall was near to the sea, and there the brave lord of the Geats, with Hygd his wife, greeted the warriors. "We thank God that you have come. We feared for you each day and felt sure you should not have gone. Let the Danes fight their own monster, we said before you went. But you would not listen. Now you are home and have survived many dangers, I can tell." So Beowulf told all that he had done and seen in the land of the Danes. He gave to Hygelac the wonderful armor Hrothgar had given him. Hygelac would be wearing this fine armor when he went looking for a fight with the Franks and the Frisians soon after. He would not keep it for long. To Hygd Beowulf gave a pair of horses, as alike as two apples, and the neckband, Wealhtheow's gift. Hygd was well known for her wise ways with the people and her fairness of mind. She did not make favorites of one group or another, or create trouble between old friends. She asked Beowulf, "Is it true, as I have heard, that the Danes mean to end their feud with the Heathobeds with a marriage?" "Yes, Friwaru is to marry Engeld. She is wise and fair, but I do not think the feud will be ended so easily. Families and friends do not forget how their dear ones died." "Is Beowulf right about this?" "I expect you're right, Beowulf," said Hygelac, "but that's enough talk about other people's wars. We'll have wars of our own before long. You have returned with rich presents from the ring-giving lord of the Danes. Now I too must reward you for your deeds." Then Hygelac gave to Beowulf a hall of his own and 7,000 hides of land. And so Beowulf lived for years as a great man among Hygelac's people, serving his lord well. The Dragon's Hoard. It came about when Hygelac lay dead, and his son Heardred also, killed by a battle sword in spite of his shield, that Beowulf became a lord of the land of the Geats. For 50 years he ruled it well. Wise and white-haired he watched over his people. But trouble was not far away. Over and over the breakers roll in and beat on the beach. On the grassy ground on top of the cliff stands a barrow, a hill built by people long ago for burying their great lord. The way in is hidden and narrow, but inside is a room heaped high with treasure. A dragon guards this hoard of gold. His scaly coils sprawl in the pile of precious things. There are rings and bracelets, gold plates and goblets, silver coins and helmets, and sword hilts studded with jewels. In the dark underground the glow of the gold makes a strange light that glints in the dragon's scales. How do you think the treasure got there in the first place? The dragon disturbed. For hundreds of years the dragon dozed on its pile, sleepy and slow, as dragons are when they are sure their treasure is safe. No one knew it was there. The barrow was grown over with grass and trees. The way in was hard to find. Yet someone did find it. A man running away from his angry master spotted the tiny entrance. He thought it was a cave and he crawled inside. Soon he followed the dark winding passage to the heart of the barrow. He saw the heap of gold and the coils of the sleeping dragon. The man was afraid, but he wanted to please his master, so he reached out and stole a gold drinking cup. He would give it to his master as a present to soften his anger. The dragon stirred in its sleep. It sensed something was wrong, and the man crept away quickly. He fled down the slope to his master and his home. When the dragon awoke, it knew its treasure had been touched, that the gold cup was gone. It sniffed about until it found a footprint, and the trail leading down to the dwellings of men. That footprint was enough to start a feud. Night falls and the dragon comes forth flaming to rain fire and terror on Beowulf's people. The smooth evil dragon swims through the sky, wrapped in flame. It swallows up towns and villages with fire. The night sky glows orange from the burning of buildings. Only the great dragon wings darken it once more as they beat overhead. Beowulf's own hall is burnt to the ground. Even the gift throne, where he used to sit giving rings and other presents to reward his people, is blackened and burnt. The gift throne of the Geats, the hall of their lord, the homes and lives of many are lost that night before the angry treasure guard goes back to his gold. Beowulf faces the dragon. Beowulf was full of dark and troubled thoughts. For the dragon had blasted the very heart of the land, it had attacked the people's safety. Beowulf meant to pay it back for that. He had a mighty shield made for him out of iron. He knew a wooden shield would be no use against fire. He would not go with a great army to face the far-flying dragon. Beowulf did not think much of the dragon's strength or fearlessness in the fight. He himself had survived so many dangers and fought in so many loud battles since he had freed Herod all those years ago. The Franks and the Frisians, the Swedes and the Hetware, all had felt the fury of Beowulf in battle. They had found out his sword strength and the hardness of his hand grip in their wars against the Geatish people. He was a war-wolf in battle. Now he marched with 12 shield-bearing men, bursting with anger, to meet the dragon. There was a 13th man in the group, the one who had stolen the cup from the treasure hoard. He went as a captive to show the way. Otherwise he would not have been willing to see the dragon's home again. "Wait there on the hill," Beowulf told his men. "I alone will deal with the dragon. For 50 years I have been your lord. Now I am old, but I will not flee from the fierce breather of fire. I boast to you that by my daring I will win this dragon's gold, or die." The dragon fight. Soon the famous fighter stands before the entrance to the barrow. Stout-hearted Beowulf gives a great roar. His clear voice echoes under the grey rock, along the passage to the dragon's home. That shout is full of anger. The dragon hears. It does not mean to ask for peace. Steam hisses from the hole as the dragon heaves its long body to the mouth of its home. Loud rumbling shakes the earth. Fire pours from the dragon's scaly jaws. Beowulf raises his round shield against the roaring flame. The dragon gathers its coils ready to attack. Beowulf waits in his armor. His grey sword, Negling, given to him by his forefathers, is sharp and shining in his hand. They glare at one another, the dragon and the man. Each fears the other and means to do him harm. The dragon rushes slithering towards his enemy, but Beowulf swings his sword. It bites less strongly than Beowulf needs. The dragon is in a fury after this attack, spitting deadly fire. The shooting flames dart everywhere. Beowulf's shield does not protect him for as long as he would like. For the first time he has to fight on when fate has decided he will not win. Beowulf has nothing to boast of now, when his good old sword has failed in battle as such iron weapons should not do. It is not easy for him to die, to give up his days on the plains of earth, as everyone must do in the end. Our lives are only lent to us for a while. The two bitter enemies attack one another again. The dragon heaves out a new breath of fire, surrounding Beowulf with flame so that he feels sharp pain. Wiglaf must decide. The group of warriors watching on the hill did not come down when they saw their leader's strength fail. They did not stand beside their lord in battle as true companions should. They fled to the woods. They saved their own lives. Only one felt sorrow in his mind. Wiglaf was his name, Woxton's son. He could see his lord's face tormented by heat under his helmet. He remembered many kind things Beowulf had done for him. No one who thinks rightly can forget what they owe to their relatives and friends. The dragon fight goes on. Wiglaf has never been in battle before, but he finds bravery enough, and speaks many true words to his companions. Now the day has come when our Lord needs our strength. Let us go and help him. Do you not remember the many times we sat at the mead benches and boasted that we would repay our Lord for all the gifts he had given us, for the spears and battle armor, for the well-made swords, with our deeds in battle? Because of this he picked us to come with him today. We cannot bring our swords and shields back home unless we have tried to bring down the enemy and defend our Lord's life. It is better to be burnt alive beside our Lord by the dragon's flame. Beowulf has been a great leader of the Geatish people. He should not be suffering alone while we are here to help him. Wearing his helmet, Wiglaf strides out through the stinking smoke to Beowulf's side. His friends are too scared to follow him. "Dear Beowulf," he cries, "you must finish what you have started. Long ago when you were young, you boasted you would never let your reputation fail as long as you lived. Now, brave lord, famous for your deeds, you must defend your life with all your might. I will help you." After these words, the dragon attacks for the third time. Waves of flame come forward, burning Wiglaf's wooden shield, but the young warrior ducks under the cover of Beowulf's iron shield and carries on fighting bravely. Then Beowulf remembers his many famous deeds and strikes with his full strength once more. His sword sticks fast in the scaly skin, and snaps in half. The terrible fire breather sees its chance. It seizes Beowulf by the neck in its poisonous fangs. Beowulf's lifeblood runs down like a river. In the time of his lord's need, Wiglaf shows great skill and courage. He does not try to touch the dragon's head but shoves his sword in lower down, burning his hand. At once the flames from its mouth grow less. Beowulf pulls out his knife and slits the dragon down the middle. The dragon falls sideways. The two together have defeated the dreadful foe. Beowulf's last words. Then the wound from the dragon's teeth began to worsen. The poison was getting nearer to Beowulf's heart. Thinking hard, the weary man sat down by a small stream. Wiglaf bathed his lord with water with his own hands. He took off Beowulf's helmet to let him breathe. Beowulf was bloody from the battle, worn out with warfare. Beowulf spoke. He knew his death was near. "I have no son to give my battle armor to, but I have guarded my people well for 50 years. No other tribes have dared to attack. I have not gone looking for feuds to fight in or made false promises I did not keep. There has been no killing of kinsmen by me. I can be glad about this even though I am dying. Now, Wiglaf, let me look on the gold I have bought with my life. I will leave life more calmly if I can see the clear jewels and the long-lasting gold work I will leave to my people." So Wiglaf darted down the dark passage into the heart of the barrow and brought out dishes and helmets and other treasure, as much as he could carry, to show his lord. Beowulf spoke. The old man was full of pain. "I thank God that I can give my people these gifts of gold. But you must see to the people's needs now, Wiglaf. I cannot be here any more. After they burn my body, tell my warriors to build a great burial mound on the cliffs that stick out into the sea. The sailors steering their ships on the gloomy waters will see it and call it Beowulf's Barrow, and my people will remember me. You are the last of our family, Wiglaf. All the others fell when fate decided they must. Now I must follow them." These were the last words from the thoughts of the old man's heart. It was hard for Wiglaf when he saw his lord was dead. He shook him and spoke to him and tried to wake him, but it was no use, and he wept. The dragon too lay without moving. Each had met the end that was meant for it. The messenger. Then Wiglaf sent one of the warriors who had been hiding in the woods to tell the Geatish people what had happened. When this messenger gave them the news, people cried many tears for the Lord who had treated them so well. The messenger said, "When our enemies hear our Lord is dead and that only one man among the Geats dared to defend him, they will soon attack us. The Franks and the Frisians would like to finish the war that Hygelac started. The Swedes are only waiting for a chance to trouble us again. Beowulf was too strong for them, and so we had peace for many years. Now it will be different. Mothers and fathers will weep again for their dead children. The black raven, the wolf and the eagle will find a feast on the battlefield. The Geats will be a people wandering without a homeland once our enemies come in upon us. Beowulf's funeral. Then the Geatish people built for their lord a great funeral pyre of wood and hung battle shields and bright mailcoats upon it. In the middle they laid their much-loved lord. One warrior went forward with a flaming torch to set it on fire. The roar of the flames mixed with the sound of weeping. The air was filled with black smoke above the bright blaze. The bone frame of Beowulf's body was burnt away. A Geatish woman sang over and over again, telling how she feared the dreadful days to come. The sky swallowed the smoke. The Geats built the barrow as Beowulf had asked. For miles it could be seen, standing high on the cliffs above the sea. Inside they placed Beowulf's ashes and the heap of treasure he had won. Beowulf was not greedy for gold. Instead he gladly gave it away. Now it would lie with him, no use to living men, as for hundreds of years before. 12 warriors rode around the barrow singing their sadness, praising Beowulf's deeds with their words. So the Geatish people cried for their dead lord. They said that among the lords of the world he was the most gentle, the kindest to his people, and the keenest to win fame. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.